Howdy, my dear YouTuber friends, and I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, Back to Basics with Microsoft Flight Sim Part 44. We're going back to basics. A number of people in the Discord have mentioned that they're having still a little bit of difficulty with landings. I did do a video about landings in the Back to Basics series. The whole series is linked in the description. But I want to concentrate more on landings and make this one more thorough. So here we go, we're coming into Heathrow Airport. I'm going to talk about different types of landings, so at different airports. Those with PAPI lights, those without. What altitude should you be in? Where should you be aiming your aircraft? That type of thing, so you come down on a nice sort of glide slope towards the runway. Better take my autopilot off here and line up, haven't I? That type of thing, and also a couple of different aircrafts to show you different types of landings. So VFR, visual flight rule landings, and also things like VFR, visual flight rules landings, I was right, and IFR, so instrument flight rules landings as well. So I'm going to go over that thoroughly in this video, and I'm hoping it's going to help quite a few of you out. So listen, let's not dilly-dally. Let me just slow my aircraft down. Let's get on with this video. Okay, so you join me in the wonderful Cessna 182. You can use the 182 or 172 if you're practicing landings. Those are the aircraft I would recommend, especially visual flight rule landings. Just set up a route from Heathrow Airport over to Booker Airport, and I've got Benzu. You can put that on with fixes, something on the world map. I'll show you a quick picture on screen how to enable these markers. So it's Benzu to Booker Airport. Now, I'll tell you what I better do there. Better active pause it, because I don't want to be flying away while I'm explaining this. I chose Booker Airport for a reason. If you open your VFR map, you can do this on both PC and Xbox VFR map. Click on the airport you're going to be landing at. Just underneath the coordinates, it will give you the altitude of the airport above sea level. So it's 510 feet altitude. I've set an autopilot altitude 1,200 feet roughly above the altitude of the runway. That's a good marker. If you're doing visual landings, which we'll be doing here at Booker, have your altitude set at least 1,200 feet above the altitude of the runway. So I hope that makes sense. So let's just re-enable the flight there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start to slowly bring the airspeed of my aircraft down. So bring my throttle down to around 120 knots or so. So I'm ready to put my gear down by the time we reach Benzu. And then we'll be on our approach fix. Hopefully pretty much heading towards runway 6, I believe, at Booker Airport. It's a good visual marker. It's not the easiest one to spot, Booker. But I've chose this because it doesn't have proper PAPI lights, that type of thing. So it'll be a purely visual landing for us. Another reason I'm making this video, I'm doing a Back to Basics video with new players. People who are having trouble with different aspects of the sim. I've already got enough people, I believe, so we don't need any more for that flight. And that'll be an upcoming flight. One of the things people have mentioned are landings. They're having difficulty with landings. So I thought I'll make this video ahead of that video, just so you can get a bit of practice in. And I've half explained then what we'll be doing in that part of that video, which is practicing landings. Perhaps people concerned, you know, hopefully who you are if you're watching this video, practice those landings with this video, hopefully as a good aid to you. So I don't need to bring my speed down more yet. I want to reach Benzu and then we'll head towards Booker Airport, wherever that is. I always have trouble with this one. I spot it a little bit too late often at times. Yeah, but let's see how this one goes. not giving you much confidence. Hopefully this one, this flight path, Benzu first, then towards Booker, will give us enough of an approach where we can safely spot the runway before configuring our aircraft to land. And that's ideal. So I've hard chose this airport. It's a little bit tricky to see, but once you do spot it, it's quite an easy runway to spot once you have spotted it. It's quite prominent, shall we say. Once you do spot it, but no proper PAPI Lights guidance for this one. So there you go, we'll be approaching that soon. And we'll start our turn towards Booker, as you can see here. So around about here when we get here. So I've got my speed now. I've configured my aircraft where I've brought my speed down low enough where I can put it into gear down speed. I won't do that yet until we turn on the approach, which will be ASAP. Can we spot Booker from here? So I'm giving you, rather than just take you directly on the approach leg, I want to give you my line up towards the airport. And then we can configure the aircraft for a landing, hopefully. So I can show you the whole configuration of these steps. Would be a better way of explaining that. So there we go. Now, can I spot that blooming airport that I always have trouble spotting? Probably a few of you have already spotted it, I believe. Is that Booker? No, it's not. We're still turning. See? I've got to laugh at myself with this particular airport. It seems to be the bane of me. There's a runway there. Let's jump back inside the cockpit. The runway is ahead of us. Now, I can put my gear down. Take it off autopilot. Oh, is the sim stuttering a little bit there for some reason? Take it off autopilot. I've had the sim up and running. So I'm flying this manually now. I'm going to bring my speed down so I get into the flaps down speed. So I get into flaps range, rather. So that white taper on your speed ribbon. I'm sure a lot of you know this by now. And then envisioning... Let me just actually pause it there, just so it doesn't run ahead of us. I'm envisioning the nose of my aircraft touching down at the threshold of the runway, and I'm going to put myself on a glide path, glide slope, gradually coming down. Don't go too low because then the runway will be difficult to spot. Keeping myself at a specific altitude, a nice gradual glide down to the threshold. I'm envisioning touching down here. So let's take it off. Active pause. I'll go into stage 1 flaps there. Now I'm a little bit high there, but it's no trouble. Stay nice and calm. I've got a good approach. Let's take the VFR map off. I've got a good angle here to come down. I can go another stage of flaps there. That's no trouble. That will help slow my aircraft down. See, I'm just doing a nice gradual glide down to that threshold. With my gear down, stage 2 flaps. Oh, 20 degrees of flaps. Bring my throttle down again. See, I can just envision now touching down here. I'm just envisioning. So I'm just positioning my aircraft to do that. And as I'm doing that, I'm gradually bringing my throttle down, not all the way. You don't want your aircraft to come down too quickly. There you go. Nice gradual slope down to the threshold of that runway. It's only quite a short runway this, so we just got to be a little bit careful. There we go. Once we're over the runway, null the throttle and do a 50 FPM touchdown. Can't beat that, can you? Then bring your flaps up. So there you go. That's a quick guidance of runways that don't have... I think that may have had some kind of PAPI lights, but they were difficult to see. I'm basically just doing a visual landing on that airport. Let me now head back towards Heathrow Airport where we've got PAPI Lights Guidance, and I'll show you that approach. So here we go, we're heading back towards Heathrow Airport now, and I'm going to show you a visual flight rules, PAPI landing, so landing, visual landing rather, with guidance. So Heathrow's just ahead there, and it's quite a prominent airport. You're not going to be able to miss Heathrow. You shouldn't miss Heathrow Airport, rather. Just got it in heading mode. Set my altitude, Heathrow Airport, let's click on it, is 78 feet above sea level. So I've set my altitude to 1,400 feet. It's above that 1,200 feet above the airport, as I spelled before. Let's just get rid of that VFR map. We're not going to need it. And there's the big city of Heathrow. Let's land at 2... Now, would that be 9 left? Let's land at 9 left. So I can see it ahead of me there. I can just use the heading mode here for the moment to line myself up on a good approach, and then we should see the PAPI lights, and I'm going to let the PAPI lights guide me. Ideal configuration, if you don't know about PAPI lights, you want ideally 2 white and 2 red. If it's all white, you're too high. If it's all red, you're too low. It's better to be a little bit high than low on a PAPI light approach, by the way. There we go, there's a runway ahead of me there. No trouble here lining up with this one, will there? Oh, no trouble spotting this one, rather. Just come a little bit more to the right. I'm going to take it off autopilot control, for goodness sake. And trim my aircraft if needed, just to keep it in level flight. And at the same time, bring my throttle back. Just so I can get myself now to my gear down speed, about 120 knots or so, or just above it. It's fine. So there we go. Can line up gradually with that runway. Just trim up a little bit more there. And you know what? Absolutely fine for gear down speed. So just configure your aircraft where you're not. Look at your virtual speed there, just to ensure you're not descending or climbing too much. I'm slowly descending, so again I'm configuring myself on a nice approach towards the threshold of the runway, but in this case I'm going to look out for those PAPI Lights Guidance, and you should see the PAPI Lights basically coming into the airport just to the left of it. Now it's saying I'm a little bit high there, so I'm going to bring my speed back, throttle back. Let's get a better approach. Like I said, it's better to be high. There we go. 2 white, 2 red. I hope you can see that. Difficult to spot at this distance, but that's 2 white and 2 red. So I'm on a pretty good approach, apart from not lining myself up properly. But hey, it's me. Let's keep in that view. Just zoomed in a bit, just so we can see. Now I'm a little bit low there. I've got to watch myself. And also, let's put a stage of flaps in. There you go. 2 white, 2 red. I'm just letting those PAPI lights guide me. I can see 2 white there. Reds are more difficult. Now it's 1 where I'm a little bit low. Let me just bring up my altitude a little bit more there. 2 white, 2 red. Perfect. Put another stage of flaps in. And once you're obviously towards the runway, a little bit high there, but now I can clearly see that runway. I'm going to bring my speed down a little bit more, throttle down a bit more. Still 2 white, 2 red. Let's try and maintain that till I'm over the runway. Once you're over the runway, don't bother with the PAPI lights. You've got the runway below you. I've pretty much got the threshold of the runway below me now. It's just a matter of gradually reducing that throttle. Nice long runway here. You've not lagged out on me, Heathrow. I'm surprised. Innobil's scenery can sometimes do that. Although there was a recent update to Innobil's Heathrow Airport. I'll put my video of the review of that down below in the description. I'm really smoking these landings today, aren't I? Well, it's not surprising at Heathrow, let's face it. I'm not actually on a live server at the moment, but I'll come off the runway, just maintain my politeness there. And there we go. And that's enough parking brake on. So there we go, that's 2 forms of visual landings. One with PAPI Lights Guidance, one without. Let me now show you some IFR instrument flight rules landing in the Vision Jet. So for this final part, let me show you an IFR approach, instrument flight rules approach in the wonderful Vision Jet here. Now if you do own the Vision Jet, I fully recommend, and I'll put a video down below in the description, Navigraph. gives you this wonderful charts feature where you can bring up an approach chart, in our case for 23 right at Manchester, dial in your airports, bring up the approach charts, and it gives you things like the frequency, which I've got dialed in. I'll put another video down below where I did a full flight in the Vision Jet showing all this. Don't want to show you that part in this video. The thing I'm looking out for here, the most important point, is the altitude I want to be at to capture that ILS, and it gives you it on the approach chart on typically this part of the approach chart. It's saying there we want to be at 3,500 feet to capture that ILS down to, not Heathrow, I was about to say Manchester, 23 right, so 3,500 feet. In our case, I've just set an autopilot altitude for 5,000 feet, which it's now reached. Just going to watch that throttle there. I've put in the ILS frequency in my nav1 radio. I'm going to wait for that to come up. It's going to be on around this part of the flight. Actually, don't need to slow down too much. Let's keep that throttle to about 250. And it's just a matter of waiting now. And then I'll show you this instrument flight rule here, or this ILS capture using my flight instruments, rather than doing it visually. So if you're ever in a Vision Jet or airliner or whatnot, take a look at your charts, your approach charts. What's it telling you on the approach chart, the altitude you want to be at to capture that ILS? That's what you want to keep in mind. So if you're at 10,000 feet, for example, plan your descents where you're going to get down in time without overspeeding, and goodness knows what, to 3,500 feet before you get on the ILS. Hope that makes sense. So I'm just going to configure my view to where I can see the identifier. I believe it's INN in for Manchester. 23 right. Gives you the identifier next to the frequency here. Yep, in. INN. So no problem there. Just keep my view there. See, I've got the identifier there now. As you can see, IN. Is that INN? Oh, my eyesight is terrible. Just be doubly sure it's not picking up on a different frequency, which can sometimes happen. Oh, it's in. We're after in. So I'm going to wait for that. There's a good example. That can sometimes happen. It will pick up on a frequency that's close by, but it's not the frequency that... It's not the actual airport frequency where you want to land. It'll be another airport close by. In. There you go. Now it's changed to what it should be, INN. Perfect. That's the frequency we want to capture. It's going to start turning now toward Manchester. What I'm going to do, using my multi-planner in this case, but you can do that with your altitude knob, autopilot altitude knob. Just going to bring my altitude down to 3,500 feet, which will, remember, that's the altitude it wants us to be at to capture that ILS. I'll put in some vertical speed to bring us down. About 600 feet per minute will do. I'm just going to bring my throttle down a bit just so we're not going to be over speeding. Absolutely fine. So there we go. Let me just put this one on the right page. This is on the right page. I'm going to switch this over to nav1 soon. Bring my heading bug to roughly my current location so I can move it left or right if need be when I switch to localizer 1. I can switch it to localizer 1 now, but essentially the CDI in the Vision Jet. And it's telling me, there you go, I need to come to the right, which I'll do that. Put it into heading mode and come to the right to join up these lines, basically the course deviation lines to the right. So I'm heading to the right. And I'm coming down to my 3,500 feet altitude. I'll start prepping my speed there. It doesn't look like I'm a long way out. What am I? Well, I'm 20 nautical miles there. I don't need to worry too much about speed yet. Let's take a look at this wonderful countryside around. Of course, this part of the world is my birthplace. Hopefully I'll be going back up there soon for a quick visit. There's a glide slope indicator as well. Let's encourage. So when that starts coming down, we're at the threshold of the glide slope. Speed. Let's bring that speed down a little bit quicker. I want to be at 3,500 feet, so 1,000 feet per 1,000 feet per minute descent there. And I'm just going to reduce that throttle, just, there we go. Just so I can control my speed a little bit better. Wait for this line to start to move in. Come a little bit more to the right there. Got plenty of time, but this is essentially the basics of lining up IFR, so instrument flight rules. Click the approach button, the line's moving in. Should line us up nicely there. And we're getting down to that 3,500 feet, aren't we? No problem. Just over these hills and mountains ahead of us. Come on, Vision Jet, keep up. The line's gone to the other side now. We are still in approach mode, it's okay. It'll just bring us round to the left to line up that line a little bit better. I'm just going to let my speed drop. Get myself down to gear down. Flaps 1 speed and then gear down. And there we go. It's all coming along nicely. Let's keep it in that speed. There you go. I'm in approach mode, so when the glide slope indicator starts to come down, it should capture it no problem. And it's hands off at this point. Well, hands off aside from your throttle and landing gear. It's just to encourage that speed to come down a little bit faster. Let's get it to 190. Before we start descending on the actual glide slope there. There we go, a little bit quicker for me. I'll click flaps, I'm just going to make that, aren't I? 191, 191, 190. Stage 1 flaps. There we go. No problem. Speed's going to continue to come down, I'm not going to worry too much. I've got my throttle in the right position. Gear down. And it's just an autopilot landing here. An autopilot approach and landing. Just watching the speed. That's the basics, basically. So remember, fully endorse Navigraph. Of course, I am an ambassador for Navigraph, but you know, they've been around for so long and I've used them for so long. And lots of, you can see my aircraft on the approach there, can't you? It's actually coming down on the approach now. It's just brilliant for these kind of maps and charts, and letting you know what altitude you should be able to capture, which, as you saw, we captured it perfectly there. Let that speed continue to come down a little bit more there. That's fine, it's just a matter of now bringing the aircraft down once you're over the runway, take it off autopilot, have it nice and slow. Landing flaps. Oh, where's that runway? There it is, Hudson. Can you miss that one? There we go. So landing flaps in. It's just going to slow us down now to a nice 100 knots or so. And then we can land. Shall I keep you here, people? For those who like to watch these types of things, this is for you. And I do like to be complete, so let's be complete. That's Manchester. Now, is it Orbix Central that added many buildings around Manchester? It's a joy to fly around. Not quite as complete as I want. I would love a fully Orbix Manchester City add-on. Orbix, if you're watching this. Yeah. But this is with Orbix Central, so it just does fill in a lot of gaps in Manchester. Just not to quite the extent that I would want. A little bit more there, and it'll be perfect. What's my speed doing? Bring my throttle back a nudge. I'm at a good speed for coming down. I don't want to be too much slower, in fact. But just bring it back a little bit. It's going to go up and down a little bit when it starts descending under the glide slope guidance by the computer. You see that speed build back up a little bit, but there, that's roughly where I want it. I'll just keep an eye on it. Don't want to be here. That would be danger, danger. Only want to be there when I'm actually landing in that range. Wonderful, the Vision Jet. And these landings, these IFR landings, once you have yourself configured, so you have your altitude where it should be according to the charts. If you don't have Navigraph, of course, you've got Well, you can just do a quick Google search for each chart. It could be a little bit tricky. There's a few different options to get these charts up just by Navigraph. Look, I'm not having to leave the Vision Jet. I've got it right in the Vision Jet for me there. All the information I need. But yeah, it's the altitude. Should be at that altitude to capture the ILS. And once you're there, it's just a matter of autopilot, isn't it? Autopilot's us down. Now, what is that? I don't know, it's like some kind of pitch or something. I know Trafford will be yonder. Over here somewhere. So it's definitely not that. Yeah, Old Trafford's quite well represented with the Orbix Central as well. It's good to see. Actually, for many years of my younger life, so pre-teens, I was actually right next to Old Trafford. The good old days when kids used to be able to get in at half-time for free. Just let us in to watch the match. It's like George Best playing at the time, and goodness knows what. I don't particularly support any team at the moment. I'm not a massive football nut. Used to be when I was younger, but not so much now. But certainly when I was younger, it was we were with the Reds United, the family. And I've been to Old Trafford a couple of times, and Main City, Manchester City's ground. That's quite a fascinating ground as well. Enough football talk. Sure, most of you don't even know what I'm talking about there. So there we go, coming in. Nice and easy. Let's just be complete here and complete the flight. Once I'm over the runway, autopilot off. Bring that throttle down to near, well, maybe 10% or so, just to slowly glide over the runway, float over the runway, and bring it down for a landing. And of course, PAPI lights. Let's mention that, because we're on an instrument approach. It's giving us the ideal approach to that runway, isn't it?
500.
Ideal altitude, 2 white, 2 red. The ideal approach. Must get a Manchester Airport add-on as well. Can you recommend one, people watching? I do fly in and out of this airport a fair bit too. Especially when I'm coming out of Leeds. It seems to be the airport I'll fly into, Manchester. It's not too bad, is it? Not too bad for a default. Right, we're coming over the runway. Bring that throttle back a little bit more now, I can afford that. Once I'm over the runway, autopilot off. So as you can see, it takes, if you're on the ideal approach, it'll take you pretty much towards the centre of the runway. Autopilot off, nice long runway, no problem for the Vision Jet. Bring that throttle back. And let's just try and not thud her down. No, it was okay. It was okay, and then bring her off to the left. So there you go, my friends. 3 different forms of landings, purely visual, visual with PAPI Light Guidance, and then an IFR landing. I do hope these will be of use to you. Watch out for that video that I'll be doing with a few newbies. The Back to Basics Newbie Flight Special. Let me know what you thought of this. Let me know what you thought of this video. Give it a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. And I'll see you soon.